The Rings of Power, a top-rated show that takes viewers back to many years before The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings happenings, despite having spent hundreds of millions of dollars for production, delivered a scene that did not have the intended effect. Watch this video to the end for details on this and to see the 5 best moments from The Rings of Power Season 1 finale. First up, the Ring of Power scene that was so bad it became iconic. The Rings of Power has won plaudits for its breathtaking aesthetics and meticulous recreation of Tolkien's world. The production of the program by Amazon is said to have cost up to $462 million, and it featured entirely unique costumes, lavish sets, and extensive on-location filming in New Zealand. However, one scene in particular did not exactly create the desired impression. Additionally, fans have really liked sharing their own reactions to it. The scene in question may be seen in Episode 3, Adar, where Isildur's father, Elendil, Lloyd Owen, discusses Menor's Hall of Laws to Galadriel. Morfydd Clark. Galadriel exclaims, "Did you say ride?" after being told that it is a quarter of a day's ride away. A pretty corny montage scene of the two galloping across sandy beaches and verdant meadows follows. To the show's trumpeting tune, Galadriel's green dress flows, and she has a ridiculously silly grin on her face as it is all shown in slow motion. The sequence sticks out awkwardly in relation to the rest of the program, indicating that the tone of the scene may not have been quite right for the producers. Naturally, this peculiarity has been brought up by the series fans on Reddit. Some people are wondering why this scenario even exists. Galadriel has undoubtedly been riding horses for a long time, so it is not strange that she is so eager to do so. According to some people, the entire presentation is over the top, and the close-ups are unsettling. Many have jokingly remarked that the scene would look great in a toothpaste or perfume advertisement. With so few supporters standing up to defend it for its attempt to give Galadriel a more fanciful tone, it is obvious that this one scene has become a running joke among fans. Even yet, some would agree that it is a refreshing change to see her in a different light than the angrier side of herself that she had shown for the majority of the season. It might no longer be important how well or poorly this one scenario was made. It has taken on a life of its own, developing into jokes, memes, and controversies based solely on a single frame. Future seasons of the show's production team will definitely take note of this and be a little less hasty whenever it comes to any slow-mo visuals. However, fans will still not easily forget about this one-off. It's sure to become just as well known as the show itself. Next up, the 5 best moments from the Rings of Power Season 1 finale. The entire Rings of Power series on Prime Video has been clouded by one question: who is Sauron? Alloyd provided a solution to that, but it also gave us and its characters a lot more food for thought. The season does an excellent job of establishing this time period in Tolkien's writings, not only putting that $1 billion budget to lavish visual use, but also letting viewers sit back and enjoy character connections that ultimately serve to make Peter Jackson's acclaimed films all the richer. There was a wealth of information to explore, regardless of your level of familiarity with the lore. Let's take some time to savor the Season 1 finale's top 5 moments and revelations as we wait another year or two for Season 2. Firstly, the Sauron fake-out. The Season 1 finale teaser promised an explanation. After an entire season of hints and theories, the mystics we've seen pursuing the Harfoots would expose Sauron. In a sense, they did. They were drawn to the stranger's abilities and thought he was the Dark Lord reincarnated, but it soon became apparent that he was indeed the other one, a kind and strong wizard who would aid in the destruction of Sauron. He quickly slew the mystics in the meantime, saving the questionable Harfoots in the process. The fact that the program used the "You are Sauron" speech as the cold open revelation and then went back on its earlier decision with the actual reveal in a way that didn't feel like a troll was fantastic. The stranger is strong and has the option to decide how to use that strength, and Sauron is present, just not in the way they anticipated. And it was a terrific moment of reckoning for all the theories out there. Secondly, the Sauron reveals. Now that Sauron has been revealed to have been posing as Halbrand, all persons on the H=S train can feel canonically vindicated. Even skeptics could not look past Halbrand's joyous forge boner in this episode, despite the plenty of hints over the entire season. For the majority of this season, Charlie Vickers has portrayed Halbrand as a stoic, troubled, slightly roguish Aragorn analog who ultimately decides to join forces with our heroes. Our Southlander king, however, came to life in Alloyd. His pleasure to be working with Celebrimbor, who was feeding him tips and gifts on how to forge the challenging mithril, was evident in the sparkle in his eyes. The connected power of the One Ring will undoubtedly factor factor into all of this eventually, but for now, it was a fun way to introduce the main antagonist of our tale. Even better, when Galadriel challenged him, Halbrand Sauron shifted into another gear. The skilled manipulator used deception, charm, and ultimately threats to bring her over to his side. He finally gave her and us a chance to observe him for who he really is at this point, and it was wonderful. Vickers' performance must have convinced even those who were on the fence about the H=S revelation, as Halbrand employed Sauron's entire complement of abilities to make one last play to team up with the elf fighter. Next is Galadriel rejecting Sauron and coming to terms with her mistakes. The most admirable aspect of Galadriel's struggles to rebuff Sauron's alluring gifts of power was how perfectly it mirrored her warning to Frodo in The Lord of the Rings about the bad nature of the rings. However, the fact that H=S is an approximate estimate for Galadriel is one of the major reasons lots of people did not appreciate the concept of it in the first place. She led the same person she had been hunting into the elf's residence and granted him the power he was fervently seeking. Just remember that anything you do this week that feels like a failure is nothing in comparison to Galadriel, but delaying her decision to run to Elrond and Celebrimbor and inform them of her discovery felt absolutely correct. It was a reflection of her pride as well as her practicality. The elven rings had to be fashioned to save her people, which is exactly in line with what we've known about her over the season. It will be difficult for Galadriel to recover from this, as she is already in a precarious position after being expelled for her preoccupation with Sauron. Another intriguing setup for Season 2 was having Elrond emerge to put the puzzle together and give her the cold shoulder at the conclusion. The phrase "follow your nose" reminds us of another moment. As was already explained, the Mystics also made a grave error in their search for Sauron by thinking that he would be the stranger. The clues are all there once more, despite the fact that Aloyd withheld the stranger's real identity. We are certain that he is a magician. This was established thanks to the word Ishtar. Again, he never makes an appearance in the epilogue, but he does encourage Nori to follow your nose, which is a quotation from Gandalf. Where the program takes his story next is what will be intriguing. While Gandalf is canonically absent until the Third Age, Rings of Power has experimented quite a bit with timelines and lore. Hence, we'll see how long we examine his time in Rhûn and what more it reveals, where that goes. Lastly, Halbrand walks into Mordor. Adar is one character that consistently steals his scenes. The enigmatic dark elf lends depth to the orcs and their conflict by being regarded as a father by them. At the conclusion of Aloyd, we learn that Halbrand Sauron has other ideas than Adar's desire to create a place for them where they might live in freedom. Except for Sauron, no one enters Mordor by just walking in. It will be fun to see how the show handles the forging of the final rings in addition to a Sauron versus Adar fight. While he doesn't directly participate in the creation of the elven rings as we have seen in the show, his influence is sufficient to corrupt them once the One Ring is made. In the lore, Sauron appears to the elves in another form, Anatar, and collaborates with Celebrimbor to create rings for the dwarf lords and the men he will eventually rule. Halbrand appeared to be an example of that, but now that he has been exposed, what about the other rings and those yet to be corrupted? For now, the extraordinary conclusion that was both fulfilling and energizing was capped by witnessing the Dark Lord appear on the outskirts of Mordor with the reflection of Mount Doom in his eyes. For an elf, 2 years is nothing, but for us regular people, Season 2 of Rings of Power cannot come fast enough. Well, that's all for today. What are your opinions on the scenes mentioned earlier? And what other series do you want us to feature? Inform us in the comments section. Please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.